Thank you and welcome. We're launching this new podcast from the Cardinal Point perspective. Today, we want to talk about carbon colonialism, Africa's fight for economic sovereignty in an age of carbon mandate. This is important. And so, again, welcome to the Cardinal Point perspective. This podcast actually is brought to you from not the sage, not the silent sage, but from the Cardinal Point advisors. On this platform, we're dedicating it to actually bold, uncompromising analysis for Africa's development and the global systems that impact its future. So in today's episode, the medium edition, we're calling for consciousness. We're challenging the emerging doctrine of climate mandates that is seemingly being imposed on Africa in the name of environmental stewardship. Now, let's step back and take a look at the historical context and the broken promise. For over 70 years, African nations have followed religiously the guidance and policy prescriptions of Western-dominated multilateral financial institutions. These institutions have promised growth, industrialization, and prosperity, if only we could adopt their blueprints. But you see, the results speak for themselves. Our economies remain dependent, our industries underdeveloped, our infrastructure insufficient. Africa continues to export raw materials and import finished goods, paying far more than we earn. Now a new mandate has emerged, not from elected parliaments on the continent or from African thinkers, but from the same external powers. Now is the call to reduce carbon emissions and preserve forests, to sell carbon credits, and to build solar panels in place of coal and gas. In essence, it is a new form of control, and that's what we're calling carbon colonialism. Now, here's a mirage of carbon credits. We're told that carbon credits can provide revenue by allowing African nations to sell their preserved environment to Western polluters. But what does that revenue actually achieve? You see, a nation without reliable power, electricity, cannot industrialize. A country selling carbon credits cannot simultaneously build coal-fired power plants or even gas infrastructure without violating its carbon commitments. These are not just technicalities. They are actually strategic shackles. Meanwhile, the West continues to emit at a lightning rate. So they're not stopping. They're continuing with their industrialization. Billionaires fly private jets. Factories remain powered by coal and gas. And yet they urge Africa to embrace environmental purity while remaining economically powerless. They talk about green bonds. Are these actually financial trap, or are they development tool? You see, the green bonds are another tool of climate on the climate agenda. On paper, they provide funds for renewable energy and sustainability. In practice, they come with high interest, heavy conditionalities, and repayment obligations that burden already stretched national budgets. Most troubling, these funds are often directed towards projects that do not generate industrial capacity. Instead, they serve as climate compliance tools, further aligning African development with Western priorities rather than African realities. So when you look at the climate conditionalities, they're actually seen as the new structural adjustment. And let us not be naive. We've seen this before. In the 1980s and the 90s, structural adjustment programs imposed austerity, liberalization, and privatization. Today, under the guise of environmental responsibility, we're facing climate conditionalities. Mandates that restrict our energy choices, our agricultural policies, and our industrial ambitions. Africa is being asked to preserve the environment not for its people, but to create offsets for those who refuse to change their consumption patterns. This is not partnership. It is environmental exploitation, clocked in the language of climate justice. It's not. We have the right to industrialize, and Africa must claim its right to industrialize. This is not a rejection of climate science, and I believe in climate science, and this is not a rejection. It is actually a rejection of climate injustice. We must demand the space to build robust energy systems that support manufacturing, industry, and technology. And that may include renewable. Renewable could be in the mix, but it must also include gas, hydro, and even coal, if that is what our development strategy requires. They're building massive nuclear infrastructure to power their AI revolution, but they're restricting us. We don't have access to nuclear, but they're restricting us from even doing coal. How are we going to industrialize? So you see, carbon finance must serve African interest, not Western emissions trading schemes. That's not what we should put our country on hold because they're emitting. No, any funding must support infrastructure that empowers, not silos that restrict. And so here's a call for African leadership, including my own country, Liberia, the policymakers, the business leaders, and citizens. Refuse to be bound by carbon handcuffs of the global north. Let us no longer accept frameworks designed elsewhere for goals that are not ours. Africa's forests, rivers, and minerals are not for sale to offset the excesses of the West. No. They are to be harnessed for dignity, for development, and for the destiny of our people. We have to. We can continue. The burden of saving the planet cannot be on us while they live in luxury and opulence. Don't change their habits, but we then have to go on saving the planet while our people live in abject poverty. Without industrialization, we're going to be here. And so I want to thank you for listening to the Cardinal Point Perspective. I invite you to reflect deeply on what climate equity truly means for Africa, and to speak out against any framework that compromises our right to thrive. And so until the next time, I want you to stay informed, to stay courageous, and stay committed to an Africa that defines its own path. Let them remove the shackles and the handcuffs. Africa needs to transform, and the only way we transform is through industrialization, so we can add value to our natural resources and be able to trade as equal partners. But if they remove cheap power from the table through this carbon colonialism and carbon injustice, we're going to be stuck right here. We get the raw material, we send it to them. They have coal plant, they have nuclear, they have gas. They will add value to them and sell them to our tenfold. We'll remain poor. We have to reject climate colonialism and reject climate injustice. Not climate science, but climate injustice. And so until the next time, we'll catch you on the Cardinal Point Perspective. You have a nice one.